Hello everybody. I don't believe having a categorized car, a car which has previously been crashed and repaired, carries the same stigma that it once did. And I put this down almost exclusively to YouTube, Matt Armstrong, Tavarish, and a personal favourite of mine, Ratarossa. You know, they and others have been showing us for years now that buying a car which has previously been involved in an incident, repairing it yourself, could be your ticket to your dream car, even when you can't afford it. And so today we are driving a Mercedes C63, which was purchased by its owner as a crashed car. And then over the last year, he has fixed this himself. And so in this video, I'm going to try and answer the question: is it economically viable to buy a crashed car today, fix it yourself, or would you be far better off just buying one with a clean history? Let's find out. My name's Ben. Welcome to Dadcars. Welcome back to the channel. As subscribers know, I'm currently on the hunt for my next car. I would love to have a Mercedes C63, but I can't afford it. But I could potentially afford to buy a crashed one and fix it myself, which is precisely what this car's owner did. But first off, look, what have we got here today? This is a 2013 facelift Mercedes C63 with the almighty 6.2 litre naturally aspirated V8, which produces a little over 450 horsepower and a little over 440 pound-foot of torque, all of which is going to those rear wheels. And power-wise, this one is standard. I know a lot of people remap them. Oh, terrible time to get stuck behind cyclists. Let's go. Even at 450 horsepower, this has got ample performance. And what was I saying? Oh yeah, and this wonderful engine is paired with this 7-speed MCT automatic transmission. Oh, police. And I will give you my thoughts on this car later in the video and compare it to what I recently drove, an E63 with the 5.5 litre bi-turbocharged V8. But what I want to focus on and give you first is likely why you clicked on this video, and to answer the question, is it economically viable today to do a crash repaired car? And so let's start at the beginning. What is the first thing the owner of the C63 did before buying it? Of course, he ran a car vertical check on it. As you can see, this vehicle flags up as being previously damaged and being an insurance write-off. But he was also able to check that it's not been clocked and that it's never been stolen in the past as well. So by running a car vertical check on your next car purchase, you're able to ensure that the seller's story matches up with the reality on the car vertical report. Take for example the C-Class Mercedes here. If the seller was telling you that it only had light damage in the past and it had all been fixed, thanks to car vertical, you'd be able to see that that is a big fat lie. In fact, the damage is quite extensive. So this would be a car that you'd need to run a mile from. And if you've never run a car vertical check on your existing family car, run a car vertical check on it today. Use promo code Dadcars, save 20% off, and get the peace of mind that your car's never been crashed, stolen, or clocked. Now let's find out how much this C63 costs to repair. And so Victor, the owner of this car, he bought it at the start of last year. And at the start of last year, prices on equivalent C63s, similar mileage, age, and all the rest of it to this, would have cost around about sort of £22,000 to £24,000. But Victor managed to pick this car up for £13,500, and it just had some front end damage. So potentially over £10,000 cheaper. So you can see the appeal there, can't you? But when Victor started to repair this car, the costs soon mounted up. For example, a bumper from Mercedes themselves for a C63 was £2,000, but Victor, being resourceful, this is what you've got to do. I think he found somebody on the forums who were selling one, and he managed to get a bumper for £500 instead. It was a similar story with the bonnet. Mercedes wanted loads of money, but he managed to find one on a Mercedes forum for £750. He needed a complete rad pack, and that cost £1,000. Oh, roundabout. Oh, I have to say, I am loving driving this around. It feels a lot more nimble than I was expecting. I'm liking this a lot. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Victor also quickly discovered that there's lots of general C-Class parts and general Mercedes parts, but if you tell Mercedes that it's for this car, they've got a separate part number, and they mark up the price significantly more, even though it is physically the same part. So Victor said there was a lot of homework that you had to do, to save the pennies, and it was, sometimes even more than half the price for exactly the same part. And all it did, it just didn't have like an additional sticker stuck over the top of the cheaper part, but it's exactly the same part. So I asked Victor, what is his all-in price now? Buying this car initially and then all of the money that he's spent on it. And he did say that he, perhaps subconsciously or consciously, he hasn't kept a concrete record of every single penny that he's spent, but by his calculations, it's somewhere now in the region of £22,000. So with saying no more, that's enough for me to sort of say, no, look, it wasn't worth doing. It wasn't economically viable. If at the time you could have bought a clean one with, with complete clean history for £22,000 and saved yourself all of that time, it wasn't worth doing. And I'm sure many of you will be hopping into the comment section now, if you haven't done so already, to say something along those lines as well. Oh God, what an idiot. Oh, he was so silly to do that. But I spent some time talking to Victor about it this morning, and as he was telling all the stories of like the late nights trawling the forums, researching things, he's never done this before. So doing everything, it took him twice as long. But he was telling me about how incredible the community is and all the people that he's met during his build process of this, all of the skills that he now has, and the real sense of pride every time he saw an issue which he had no idea how to get over, and then when he did actually fix it and get over that issue, that massive sense of pride of, yeah, God, I did that, I fixed that. And look, I must admit, full disclosure, I don't know how to do anything on a car. And I kind of respect those who can do things on cars. I kind of envy people who can fix cars. It's no doubt why I, for many years, have watched Scott Rattarossa, because he works on Ferraris. I dream of owning a Ferrari one day, and seeing somebody actually fix a lot of the problems kind of makes it just feel more realistic, that one day I could have a Ferrari. So will I now be looking for a car that I can't afford that's been crashed and try to fix it for my next car? Well, look, we'll come on to that later, because we just hit one of my favourite little bits of road. So let's see what this is like to drive. Tell you what, let's put it into manual mode. And one of the reasons why I am driving this today without any of my pickles in the back is because when I drove the E63 with all that power going to the rear wheels, I actually said in the video, I enjoyed it so much that it's a car that I wish I drove on my own. So that's why I've opted to do this today, so I can have a little feel what these cars are like. Brakes are fantastic. This revs all the way up to a little over 7,000 RPM as well. Let's see what 7,200 feels like. Oh! Oh, I love an naturally aspirated engine. I really do. Now I can already say that I actually feel quite at home with this car over the E63, because this is a naturally aspirated unit. The power delivery is much more approachable. It's kind of what I'm used to, like I had the Aston Martin DB9 with the naturally aspirated V12 for 2 years, and then went on to the naturally aspirated V8 Maserati Grand Sport as well. This car's owner has also opted to put this car back to standard. So when he got it, it had already had some cat modifications, and it was a hell of a lot louder than it is, but he's now got this set up that is standard. So the sound that you hear from this is what they would have been like from the factory. And yes, in the drive-bys, it is far less antisocial than that E63 that were recently featured on the channel, but oh, the sound is such high quality. But the shock for me, as somebody who's always been, you know, an OEM guy, somebody who's held the opinion that, look, if the car has got a quality engine and it's from a certain era, you shouldn't have to, you know, mess around with it to enjoy the sound and enjoy the car. But yeah, look, the shock for me is maybe I'm a little bit more of a yob than I thought. I think if I had one of these, I would want to uncork it slightly, so it's a bit louder than what this is now. The ride height on this car has been modified, and Victor says he will be at some point, you know, returning it back to its normal ride height, because to him it feels too bumpy. But I must say, for me, I don't know, maybe it's because I had the Grand Sport for so long as my daily, but this feels absolutely fine. Yeah, you can definitely feel when you go over the rough tarmac, but yeah, I have to say that overall driving experience of this, you know, that's something, if you want to have a bit of a blast when you've dropped the kids off, God, it passes with flying colours. This is absolute delight. I feel really at home in this car already. You know, I think 450. What are you doing? Why are you coming? Yeah, thanks. Cheers. Thanks, buddy. But you know, come to think of it, 450 horsepower. You know, rear-wheel drive, that is a nice sort of sweet spot of performance, isn't it? But those who want that real low-down punch, you know, you might actually prefer the bi-turbocharged, because, yeah, even low in the rev range, God, it kicks you in the back. So if you are thinking about buying a C63 to use it as your dad car, you know, use it with your family, what are the rear seats like? Well, obviously this is a two-door coupe. These also came as a wagon, as an estate, and also as a four-door saloon. If you were to ask me which shape would I buy, well, I mean, I'd have any of them, but I would go for either the estate or this, the two-door coupe. That's just my personal preference. But what about you? What would you pick out of the three? Let me know in the comments below. But take it from me, as somebody who did use a DB9 for 2 years with 3 children as his dad car, honestly, there's plenty of space behind. You're not going to be compromised on what child seats you have in the back. You've got your ISOFIX, obviously, so yeah, whatever child seats you want, they will fit in the back here. And you've just got to enjoy the slight novelty, you know, of getting in and out, having to sort of move the seat forward and backwards and get them in. Now, I'd stopped doing the Dadcars boot test, but Eli and Yanis, who this is their car, they just let their dad chauffeur drive them around in it, because they so kindly let me drive this today. I'm going to do the Dadcars boot test for you. So let's see how big this boot is. Hello, hello, Victor. Oh, thank you. And that's why I stopped actually doing it. It's because if you've not seen the Taycan Turbo S video, I got stuck in the boot for over 40 minutes. But look, as you can see, the boot is massive. You can fit a double buggy in here, bags, and a full weekly shop, I reckon. How much is a C63 to buy today? Well, I checked the classifieds this morning, and the bottom of the market for the early ones, you know, 2009, 2010 cars, pre-facelift, you can see them for slightly under £15,000. Admittedly, they've got higher mileage, and I do think that a C63 is a bit of a brave pill at the bottom of the market. But for around the high teens, I reckon you'll be able to get yourself a nice C63. But purchase price is one thing. You know, what about running costs? Could you actually afford to use one of these as like a daily dad car? Well, tax, as you would expect, is the top whack, you know, over 700 quid at the time of recording. Insurance, well, you would expect, wouldn't you, this car here, which is a categorised car at C63, insurance is going to be sky high, but this car's owner pays £430 to insure this car. Now, I know that's age and location dependent, but it's good to know that sensible quotes are available. What's the real world miles per gallon though with this 6.2 litre naturally aspirated V8? Well, Victor tells me that on a run recently, he managed to achieve, you know, going 70 miles an hour on average, cruise control, all the rest of it, an average of 24 miles per gallon. And in my book, for a car with an engine like this, that is perfectly acceptable. But it depends on how many miles a year you do, doesn't it? But for someone like me who does around 6,000 miles a year, you know, calculating those fuel costs, that is absolutely acceptable in my book. Servicing costs, I would say you should budget sort of £500 to £1,000, depending on, you know, major, minor, and probably pick up on another little few things that you need to do as well. But the other thing is, you know, general maintenance when things go wrong, and that's when, you know, obviously any car like this, it can get expensive. Unfortunately, or fortunately for Victor, he hasn't had any sort of, you know, maintenance issues, any sort of big thing going wrong. So all of his money has just been going on, you know, repairing that front end. As you can see in the B-roll, this is cosmetically not 100% just yet, but I appreciate Victor bringing it down to me to feature today. Subscribers to the channel will notice I'm doing this in a completely different order today, but it's only because genuinely until last night when I spoke to Victor on the phone quickly, I didn't know the story of this car. I didn't know that, you know, he bought it as a crash car and repaired it. So I had a last minute sort of change of what I wanted to talk about in this video because I thought it was so interesting. But, you know, what's it like inside here as the driver? What's the interior like compared to the E63? The overall sense for me is that it's a wonderful place to be. I'm a huge fan of white cars with red leather interiors. It's a classic combination, isn't it? I had a white SD1000 with red leather seats. This is a time when I'm really glad this doesn't have a modified exhaust. I'm behind a funeral procession here. So yeah, I'd be blushing right now if this was making as much noise as the E63 was. This car doesn't have a leather wrap dash, and you'd be surprised just how much difference, honestly, overall, and in just how generally special a car feels when it's got, you know, leather up here on the door cards and leather on the dash. It's something which I've grown to really appreciate. The steering wheel feels really nice in the hand. I believe this is OEM Plus. I don't think this is the wheel that originally came with this car. Oh, that's great. The funeral procession is moving right here. But all in all, it's a really, really nice place to be. I'm a massive fan of, you know, Mercedes cars from this era. So we're coming up to summary time here, and I'm going to answer 2 questions. So, will I do a crash repair car? Will I be looking to do one? And number 2, you know, what do I think overall of finally driving a C63? Well, am I going to get a crashed car as my next car? No, I'm not. Definitely not. You know, and speaking to Victor, hearing about how much it's cost and all of the time and all of, yeah, look, it's not right for me right now. And if anybody asked me, do you think I should do it? Do you think I should buy this crash repaired Maserati, AMG, BMW M car, whatever, and then, you know, work on it even into weekends? No, I don't think you should. However, I completely see the appeal. You know, the way that Victor knows this car now, all the skills that he's learned, when this is 100%, I think, you know, quite rightly, he should be really, really proud of doing this, something that he's never done before. And then what he's got at the end of it is an incredible car, and all of that knowledge and all the people that he's met along the way and the relationships he's formed in the AMG community. Honestly, I completely see the appeal. And if you really, really, really want to do it, yeah, like, I don't think you're mad to do it, even today, even though it's not economically viable. And as I said earlier on, I am definitely envious of people who can fix their cars, you know, who do know how things go together. Because also, you know, imagine if Victor in the future, he's planning on buying another Mercedes in the future and then doing it again. And, you know, when he does it again, all the lessons that he's learned, you know, maybe he will make the next one so it was financially viable as well. But also he'll know what to look for when he's going and looking at a car to buy for someone's driveway. You know, he'll be able to look under the bonnet, get underneath it, understand how it all goes together, and maybe able to spot something. And like I said at the start of this video, historically, you know, when I first started driving, you know, me and people around me always looked at, you know, categorized cars as something to completely avoid. And I do think that has changed now because of the culture, you know, on YouTube with those incredible content creators that I mentioned. I think there really is an awesome community and appreciation and respect for people who take a special car, save it from otherwise, you know, being parted out and scrapped or whatever, and, you know, and then get it back on the road. There's something about the sustainability of that, isn't it, as well, which is really, really nice. And the final question to answer is, would I buy a C63? And oh, absolutely, yes, I would. I'm really, really happy that, you know, driving the E63 and these special AMGs from this sort of sweet spot, you know, the end of the noughties, start of the 10s, with these engines, these cars, they really speak to me. And I absolutely have to own a something 63, whether it's a C63, an E63, or an S63 even, maybe. But I must say, yeah, honestly, the way this drives, or that engine, even standard, listen to that. Oh. I love these cars so much. I really, really do. And so if you're thinking about buying a C63 and using it as a dad car with your family, I say absolutely, definitely go for it. My advice would be get a pre-purchase inspection on one, run a car vertical check on it first to make sure that you know all of the history about the car. And then even if it is a car which, you know, has been crash repaired, make sure you know everything about it first, you know, before you buy it. But absolutely buy a C63. They are incredible. They are a Dadcars legend for a reason. You know, so the C63 does belong, I think, on the Mount Rushmore of Dadcars, doesn't it? It's just incredible. And yeah, I can't wait to own one. Look, thank you all so much for watching. If you don't already subscribe to the channel, please hit the subscribe button now and check out one of these other videos we've done, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.